It is pro day season. It is also Final Four season. It is one shining moment season. The one, of course, meaning 4 1 seeds. You're guaranteed a 1 ONE shining moment for one of these teams coming up this weekend, including perhaps this man's Florida Gators. He's an NBA champion. Didn't do it with the Gators, but I know he's rooting for the Gators. He's a walking double-double, as somebody once said recently. David Lee, how the heck are you, man?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
How you feeling about your Gators in San Antonio this weekend?
I got my fingers crossed for sure. I chose them at the start of the tournament because I knew that I was going to cheer for them anyways. And I had them against Duke in the final, and it's looking like that's a decent possibility for that to happen.
To be fair, do you pick them every year?
No, I don't. And of course, the natural thought is 1 seeds never make the Final Four. All of them never make the Final Four. So I kind of felt dumb picking them in my bracket, but I was going to cheer for them. So I thought, why not? And this is the year that all 4 1 seeds make it.
Okay, so about the 1 seeds, David, does that mean it's been a tournament, or does that mean, hey, they got it right? Look, we knew who the 4 best teams were. They nailed it.
I think a little bit of both. I think from a fan enjoyment standpoint, everyone loves to see the upsets. They like to see the Cinderella teams make a run. But if you're on the selection committee and you're saying these are our 4 1 seeds, I think you're patting yourself on the back and saying we made the right decision. And these 4 teams have had great seasons all year long, and so they definitely were deserving. And the Final Four is the outcome has proven that. So I think a little bit of both.
Talking to David Lee here, who's a DraftKings talent ambassador. I'm sure you're sick of this question because, I mean, even before NIL, I live in the football world. You always talk to the old football players. Man, you see that contract? Wouldn't have been great if you guys got paid that. But, I mean, look at your Gator team with you and Al Horford and Corey Brewer and Torian Green and Joakim Noah.
Yeah.
David, what would the payroll collectively in this era have been for that team?
Or the question is, how dumb would we have spent the money in Gainesville, Florida, circa 1999, 2000, 2001? I keep thinking this because there's got to be sort of an in-between scenario. I remember when I was playing there, we had a guy on the team who lost a family member tragically during the season. And Billy Donovan looked at us and said, hey, guys, we have to have the players kind of pool some money together to get this player a flight back to where they're from because the school can't legally give him money for that to go to the funeral. So that makes no sense to me considering how much these schools are making. But now with these guys making so much money, I'm applauding them for doing it. I'm happy they're making that much money. But the fact that they're making so much and able to transfer freely, it's brought some questions about college, sports overall into my head. And I know a lot of these college coaches are very frustrated by it. So I think there's probably a healthy medium or a way to hold the money for a certain point until guys go pro or until they're done with college. I don't have the solution. I certainly don't, and how to do it fairly across all sports. But it's definitely different than it used to be. And I can't wrap my head around it at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix it either. Everyone thinks they have an answer, but we had Richard Pitino on yesterday, and listen, he was honest. He said, I broke my contract in New Mexico to come here, so I get it. Players want to leave, and they're going to go get their bag somewhere else. He has 2 guys. Right? He has 2 guys right now. The team meeting on the new head coach was really short. They could have done it on a text chain. I got 2 guys. That's it.
It was barely a group text. There was only 3 guys.
Right. I mean, it's hey, who did? Wait, what's the other number on this chain?
Exactly. It's the only other guy we got.
Yeah, I don't know this guy. You mentioned Duke before. Cooper Flagg, we assume, is the number 1 overall pick. He probably had some rough spots earlier in the year, but now he is the guy. How do you think his game translates?
I mean, just hearing, because I was on a few of those teams that played against I guess they call it the select team that plays against the Olympic team before they head off to the Olympics. And that is not an easy thing to do, first of all, because you have so many guys with big names that are on the Olympic team. You get no calls. They're all on the same team, so they're teaming up against you. It is a very difficult thing to be a part of. And from all the accounts that I heard, he did unbelievable in that. So that's what you're really looking at. College basketball can be a bit of a different experience with guys being able to basically camp in the lane defensively. I know he's gotten a lot of attention in double teams and different scenarios against him. Everybody's looking to be the guy that stops Cooper Flagg. But I mean, he's had an incredible season overall. Their team has won, which has made it even better. And he's had an incredible tournament when the most people have been watching. So I think if whoever gets the number one pick, if they don't choose him, they may be regretting that down the line.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what David's referring to, last July, Cooper Flagg practiced against the Olympic team, the team that went to Paris and won the gold. Barely pulled it out at the end, but won the gold. And there are these moments that went viral where he stuck a three over Anthony Davis, and then on the other end, he scored on Bam Adebayo and got an N1, and people were just like, oh, wow. Like, holy you-know-what. The next night, or maybe 2 nights later, David, I was at the Gatorade High School Player of the Year party here in L.A. right before the ESPYs, and Justin Jefferson is there, and Puka is there, and DK Metcalf is there, but there are all these high school kids there. I promise you, no one recognized or knew Cooper Flagg at this party. They wanted to talk to the NFL wide receivers. He's there with his folks. You see his parents now on TV, all the cutaways, every game.
Yeah.
And I went up and talked to him for a little bit. Nice kid. And we talked about, what it was like to practice against those guys and how LeBron welcomed him and how cool of an experience it was. But, he took some photos with people, but he was pretty unassuming, just this tall kid standing there at this party with a bunch of NFL players. And a year later, remember, I came home and I said, I met the number one overall pick next year. Really? Oh, no, believe me, this kid is going to be the number one overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of it also, right? I hear everyone says how good of a work ethic he has and that he's a humble guy and that he does all the right things. And if you're drafting a guy number one, number two, I mean, that's what you want, right? Because the talent can be there, but obviously the work ethic and the stuff off the court has to follow. So that's good to hear. And from all accounts I've heard, he's a good guy.
All right, let's get to the NBA. Who's coming out of the West, David Lee?
Okay, so I'm going to give my official statement. I am a Knicks fan in the East and a Warriors fan in the West.
Okay.
If you would have asked me this question 3 months ago, I would have given you a very kind answer about how Steph Curry can climb mountains on his own and do this, but I would not have really thought in my head that the Warriors could make it out. Now with adding Jimmy Butler, I think they have as good of a chance as anybody. The big question marks, in my opinion, are what is going to happen with Oklahoma City and Cleveland, the two best teams in the league all season, when the playoffs hit and they're not as playoff tested as other teams. They both have great home court advantages. If everything happened like it should and plays out on paper, those two teams should be in the finals. I'm not sure many people believe that's going to be the case.
All right, so let's talk about the Cavaliers here. Obviously, they hit their rough stretch a couple of weeks ago, lost those 4 games in a row in the West Coast swing. Right now, if everything holds, they would play a Game 7 against the Celtics at home. And a lot of people in Cleveland are hanging their hat on that. But they have shown an inability, save for one game, to beat the Celtics. And I can tell you right now, I got a lot of Cleveland in me. I'd be anxious that it would get to a 7th game in Cleveland.
I think, and once again, I'm going to bring it back to the fact that I'm a Knicks fan.
Yeah.
I think there are 3 teams in the East, meaning Cleveland, Boston, and the Knicks, that I look at that all have a shot. Boston, to me, has the best team overall, has the most depth. They're playoff tested. They won it last year, et cetera, et cetera. They've had injury problems all year. They're one twisted ankle away from not having their full team, and I think making themselves beatable. But I think the East is still theirs to lose. But you look at a 7-game series, Brunson coming back from an injury and being rested going into the playoffs, I think the Knicks have a chance. And then you look at assuming Cleveland and Boston make it. If that were to happen, I think Cleveland with home court advantage has a chance. I still would probably say Boston has the best team on paper, but I really think when you get into those second and later rounds in the East, I think anything can happen at this point.
And the Cavaliers, for those who don't know, did beat the Knicks last night. New York led at the half. Cavs and Donovan Mitchell specifically kicked it into gear in the second half, and the Cavaliers won it. How long do you think Steph can play, David? And you obviously know him. You won with him. But, he looks like the guy that, he could be out there at 50 hitting shots from half court if they'd let him.
Yeah, he can be Del Curry's age and still be out there with a jump shot like that. I mean, the question is how will his role change? What will the Warriors do down the line when they owe him like $84 million a year and he's not the same player? you don't want to trade him. So there's going to be some interesting decisions down the line. But he's certainly in a position that's very unique because with the best jump shot in NBA history and the best shooter in NBA history, and he's got a lot of gamesmanship to how he plays and his ball handling, et cetera. To me, it's how long does he want to play and how long can he stay healthy?
Talking to David Lee, former Steph Curry teammate, NBA champion here, DraftKings talent ambassador. I was having this conversation with a friend recently, David, about how transformational certain players are, generational talents, whoever used that phrase a lot. Has any player, and I realize, hockey's not your thing. I don't think it is, at least. So, we're only talking basketball. But I can't think of a player in any sport that you can truly say changed the game in our lifetime like this guy truly changed the game. We now have a generation of younger players in the NBA who look and act and shoot and play their game exactly like him. And the spacing, the way no one wants to play in the paint, one man, and I realize analytics has a huge play in this as well. But can we find another player that changed a sport like him?
You could make the case maybe a Tiger Woods in golf, but I don't think he did anything different as much as he just did everything better than everyone else. It's very interesting because it sort of happened overnight. I remember the days when they gave Steph his $11 million a year contract, and every sports writer said, oh, he's injury prone. He's not fast enough. He's too small. He plays no defense. How could they give him money? The Warriors are so stupid. Another bad decision by the organization. And now everyone still thinks he's underpaid, making 50 or 60 million a year. So, I see it. What's really interesting is the NBA is such a copycat league, and I don't say that disrespectfully. All these teams want to win. And when you saw what the Warriors eventually became, where it was essentially small ball, you're switching every pick and roll on defense, and offensively, you're playing behind the three-point line with a lot of interchangeable, long, athletic guys. A lot of teams tried to emulate that. The difference is they didn't have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, and Draymond Green on their team. And so it didn't work out so well for a lot of teams. Now the talent level is caught up, and that's all these NBA teams look for now are guys that are 3-and-D guys. The days of handing the ball to David Lee on the block or Zach Randolph on the block or these guys, Carlos Boozer on the block, those days are really over with. Part of me thinks that so many three-point shots has taken away a lot of the different skill levels of the game. Rebounding isn't as big of a deal because you have more long rebounds from long shots. The mid-range game, we talked about a guy like a Carmelo Anthony making the Hall of Fame. Carmelo was as fun to watch in the mid-post, what he did and the skill level he had with his footwork. Kobe as well, back when he played, he caught the ball 17, 18 feet from the basket, and his footwork was something that no matter how you tried to guard him, he had an answer for it. Some of that's been lost. And I think you look at teams scoring 150, 160 points. I don't have the answer how to change that. I think it's a compliment to the skill level of the players that have come in the NBA now. So I'm not complaining about it as a fan, but I don't know that the average basketball fan loves to watch that as much as maybe they did a few years ago when it was more 110 and 120 points being scored. And there was only a few guys that could really shoot the ball that way. Now, the talent level of guys and how they've shot the ball how they shoot the ball now is really incredible.
Yeah, and to your point, 2 nights ago, I think the Bucks shot 68 or whatever it was % from the field, which is the best team shooting night in 27 years in the NBA, but part of that has to go with defense as well and the way the game is being played and the shots that are being taken. Real quick, before we let you go and hit the DraftKings thing as well, I know you mentioned Carmelo. We talked off the air. Carmelo, word got out yesterday, going to the Hall of Fame, and we are both here in the Carmelo Anthony Admiration Society.
Yeah, absolutely. They said to me, oh, you just missed playing with him in New York. And I said, yeah, instead I had to play against him for 10 years or 12 years or whatever it was. An absolute nightmare to guard. I remember him most in his Denver days, and used to go out there and play them in Denver. And you're already tired from the altitude. And then when he was shooting the ball well from the mid-range, which was 95% of the time, there was just no way to stop him defensively because he was so physical, because he could get to the basket, he could handle it well, he could post up, and that mid-range game was unstoppable. So Absolutely well-deserved. I think also what's so impressive, what he's done with his son becoming such a great player and being such a good dad and mentoring him as well. And I've gotten to know him even better since we've been done. And we've both been working some with the Knicks, and I've sat next to him at a couple of games. And what a good guy and well-deserved and just very, very happy for him.
His son, Kyan, who's actually going to Syracuse next year, following in Dad's footsteps. David Lee is a DraftKings talent ambassador. DraftKings Sportsbook offering all customers a no-sweat parlay every day of the NCAA tournament. Simply opt in, apply the token before placing the qualifying bet, and receive your stake in a bonus bet if you lose. Did I get that right? Anything to add on that?
This is a fun time of year to be a sports bettor. Well, especially the first couple rounds of the tournament. Everyone that picked the upsets, though, they're not having the best couple of weeks. But
Not a week for upsets. It is a week for a one shining moment, however, and that will happen Monday in San Antonio with the Riverwalk. Always a fantastic, and I believe Florida has been there for a Final Four before in the past, if memory serves. Fantastic Final Four venue. David Lee, great to talk to you, man. Good luck to your Gators this weekend.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. David Lee, everybody. Good stuff there.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.